President Bongbong Marcos clarifies that the Supreme Court's decision on the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte addressed only procedural issues. In a briefing during his state visit to India, Marcos says the Supreme Court's ruling did not touch on the substance of the complaint, adding that it was the procedure that was faulty. He says the decision has no bearing on the rightness or wrongness of the impeachment. The president emphasizes that there was no trial, so the impeachment complaint's contents were never debated upon. He further explains that the Supreme Court found fault with how the impeachment case was handled. Marcos then reiterates that the executive branch had no role in the impeachment proceedings. The Senate on Wednesday, August 6, approved the motion to archive the impeachment complaint against Duterte with 19 affirmative votes, 4 negative, and 1 abstention. The upper chamber's move came after the Supreme Court ruled on July 25 that the impeachment complaint against Duterte was unconstitutional. The High Court's unanimous decision held that the complaint violated the Constitution's one-year bar rule and failed to provide due process to the respondent. The House of Representatives filed a motion for reconsideration, arguing that the Supreme Court undermined the lower chamber's exclusive power to initiate impeachment. Vice President Sara Duterte is now focusing on potential future impeachment moves after the Senate voted to archive the impeachment complaint against her. In an interview in Davao City on Wednesday, August 6, Duterte says she initially wanted a bloodbath where the prosecution and the defense could both present their pieces of evidence. Since it won't happen for now, Duterte says she will prepare for what could happen in the future should anyone again file an impeachment complaint against her in the coming years. The Vice President also states that the Senate's decision should be respected. The Senate on Wednesday deliberated on the Supreme Court ruling that declared the fourth impeachment complaint against Duterte as unconstitutional. The upper chamber voted to archive the impeachment case with 19 affirmative votes, 4 negative, and 1 abstention. According to Senate President Cheese Escudero, a motion to bring the impeachment case out of the archives could still be made once the Supreme Court reverses its decision. Before the Senate session on Wednesday, the Vice President's whereabouts were unknown, even to her own office. One of the petitioners before the Supreme Court, Davao City Councilor Luna Acosta, posted photos on social media showing Duterte joining the petitioners against her impeachment in a Thanksgiving celebration at an undisclosed venue. Also present was lawyer Israelito Torion, one of the lead petitioners opposing Duterte's impeachment. China says it lodged serious protests against the Philippines after President Bongbong Marcos said the country will likely be involved if Beijing invades Taiwan. In an interview with Indian media on Wednesday, August 6, Marcos was asked whether he would allow the United States to use Philippine resources and bases to defend Taiwan from China. Marcos said there was no way that the Philippines could stay out of the conflict because of the country's physical geographic location. He said that in the scenario of an all-out war, the Philippines will have to defend its territory and sovereignty. The president emphasized that many Filipinos live in Taiwan and the Philippines would need to rescue and repatriate them. In a statement on Friday, August 8, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the Taiwan question is Beijing's internal affair, leaving no room for interference. China believes that the near geographic location and large amount of Filipinos in Taiwan should not be used as pretexts to interfere in Beijing's internal and sovereign affairs. China accuses the Philippines of going back on its words in terms of its commitment to the One China policy. China also accuses the Philippines of harming bilateral relations. Beijing then urges Manila to abide by the One China principle and the spirit of the China-Philippines Joint Communique on the establishment of diplomatic relations. China views democratically governed Taiwan as its territory. While the Philippines observes the One China policy, the government has been preparing contingency measures to ensure the safety of Filipinos in Taiwan amid China-Taiwan tensions. Batanes is now bracketed by 3 China Coast Guard ships patrolling the eastern and western sides of the island province as of Friday, August 8. Maritime expert Ray Powell says China Coast Guard Ship 4304 was seen about 60 nautical miles west of Batanes, while China Coast Guard ships 3301 and 3304 were last seen approximately 70 nautical miles off the island's eastern side. In his post on X on Thursday, August 7, Powell said the 3 ships' positions formed a bracketing pattern with vessels placed on either side of something. When asked on Friday if the Chinese vessels were still in a bracketing pattern, Powell says the ships are patrolling both east and west sides of Batanes. Powell notes how he's never observed the China Coast Guard conduct an intrusive patrol on the Philippines' east side before. He also points out that the 3 China Coast Guard vessels bracketing Batanes are large and armed, deeming the ship's patrol as a new level of aggression. Since Thursday, the China Coast Guard ships have been monitored passing through the Bashi Channel in what Powell describes as a very unusual trap. The Bashi Channel is a strategic waterway between Batanes' Mavulis Island and Taiwan's Orchid Island. It connects the South China Sea and the Pacific Ocean. In previous months, the Philippine Navy and Philippine Coast Guard have monitored Chinese research ships off the eastern part of the country, particularly the Philippine rice. San Miguel Corporation President and CEO Ramon Ang is volunteering to help solve the flooding problem in Metro Manila at no cost to the government or the public. Ang makes this vow in the presence of Metropolitan Manila Development Authority Chair Don Artes and several Metro Manila mayors on Friday, August 8.
Ako po, San Miguel, Ramon Ang, nagbo-volunteer ako ngayon. Ako nang tutulong sa buong Metro Manila ng sa baha. At no cost to the people, at no cost to the government. O, kahit yung eskwela, gusto mo, bibili na ako ng lupa, kapalin doon. Tatayuan ko ng kapalin na eskwela. At yung housing, bibili na rin ako lupa. Para tayuan ng pabahay yung mga tao doon. Para lang alisin natin yung mga pabahay at eskwela sa ibaba ng ilog. Kaya, pag may problema, huwag kayo magduduruan, di ba? Hanapin natin yung problema, imbestigahan natin.
The tycoon proposes the removal of waste and structures built along rivers, saying they block water flow toward drains and creeks. He adds that as houses along rivers are cleared, residents should also be provided with relocation sites.
I take it upon myself. I will cooperate with all of you at no cost to you guys. Kami na gagawa! Wow! Ang daming solution, ang daming pera pinag-uusapan. Kami na gagawa! San Miguel lang magki-clearing. Pero without you guys authorizing us, hindi namin magagawa yun. Paano namin pubunutin mo ngayon? But with MMDA and mayors, ay lahat ng construction niyan buunin natin para mawala na yung baha.
Heavy rains in recent weeks left several parts of the country submerged, with critics blaming the widespread flooding on substandard infrastructure. Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon previously said the ongoing construction of the MRT-7 and Skyway Stage 4 contributed to the flooding in Quezon City, particularly along Commonwealth Avenue. The MRT-7 and Skyway Stage 4 are projects being developed by San Miguel Corporation. However, San Miguel said MRT-7 structures were not the cause of flooding, as they were built outside existing drainage lines and did not obstruct the flow of water. In his fourth State of the Nation address, Marcos ordered the Department of Public Works and Highways to identify the flood control projects under his administration that were failures, unfinished, or ghost projects.